Welcome to the Live Well, Perform Better podcast. My name is David Duggan and I'm the director of Below the Line, an Irish-based consultancy specialising in helping people, teams and organisations raise their levels of consciousness, inner potential and performance. I am part of a team made up of experts from the worlds of business, elite sport, adventure and health and well-being. We are coaches, mentors and advisors to some of the world's biggest companies and organisations, as well as smaller businesses, entrepreneurs and people looking to make their mark in the world. Our guiding mantra at Below the Line is live well, perform better. What does that mean, you might ask? Good question. Maybe the easiest way to describe it from our perspective is finding the formula that works for you when it comes to things like looking after your physical and mental health, running your business, developing your career, leading your people, or simply being able to show up as brilliantly as possible into your own life, both for yourself and those around you. That's why each week I sit down with a member of our team or an invited guest for a conversation that focuses on the question, what do the words live well, perform better mean to you? This question is a way into exploring with people from a range of different backgrounds, industries and disciplines. What are the practices, techniques, habits or ideas that they use to help them to show up and be at their best in all areas of their lives? Whether that's as CEOs, leaders or managers, or as parents, family members or friends. We keep it short and sweet so that you can extract all the good stuff and get on with the rest of your day and hopefully put some of our knowledge, experience and expertise into play for yourself. This week I'm delighted to be joined by another very special guest, Pete Smyth. Pete is the founder and CEO at Broadlake, a Dublin-based boutique venture capital company that takes a unique approach to investing in businesses in a wide range of industries. Pete was kind enough to sit down with me and offer his thoughts and perspectives on what living well and performing better means to him, and in doing so, revealed many of the guiding principles that underpin his approach to business, leading and managing people, and how to respond and evolve to changing times and circumstances. This is a must listen for anyone interested in how to realise more potential in yourself, your business, or your organisation, and how and why this process always has to start with you first. You can subscribe at www.belowtheline.ie, where you can stay up to date with our podcast, as well as our exclusive online events and sessions, including our Press Pause coaching community. Thanks for listening and see you next week. Before we start this week's episode, I'd like to take a minute to let you know about an event we are hosting on the 13th and 14th of October in the beautiful Brook Lodge Hotel and Spa in Macredon Village in County Wicklow. The Elemental Leadership Experience will be our first in-person event in over 2 years, and we're really excited to be finally getting back into a room with people and hosting what will be a uniquely inspiring and exciting event. As we all know, the past few years have been a mixed experience for us all. For some, it has been about stress management, coping and survival, both personally and professionally, while for others, it has been a time for recovery, reflection and self-care. Either way, we all know and can see that yet again our world is changing, and with it, so must our mindset, our attitude and our energy, which is why we're offering you the opportunity to recharge your leadership, rediscover your performance edge, and re-inspire yourself to successfully meet the moment and challenge of right now. At the Elemental Leadership Experience, you will be a participant in 2 days of inspiring sessions, workshops and talks, facilitated by the Below the Line team of expert business and performance coaches, all while enjoying wonderful accommodation and hospitality in a beautiful part of the world, with a group of like-minded, success-orientated people. Places are limited, so if this sounds like something you want to be a part of, head over to www.belowtheline.ie for full details on how you can reserve your place. Thanks for listening, and now, on with the show. First of all, Pete, thanks a million for making the time to do this. And I'll kick in with the first question, which is, why do you do what you do?
Yeah, well, I think, Dave, I think I'm very lucky to be able to do what I do, right? And I had some good success early in my career that kind of gave me the freedom to be able to really look at myself in terms of what do I love doing? What am I good at doing? And what are the things I'm bad at doing? And what do I need to stay away from, right? And thankfully, I have positioned myself in terms of my role, in terms of Broadlake, to play to my strengths, right? And that is really a journey of continuous learning for me personally, which I love. I love learning and exploring, but it's probably more importantly, it's helping others. So I would describe that's what I do in terms of the work we do with the businesses that we partner with in Broadlake, and the work I do individually with the leaders and the leadership teams within those businesses. And it's very much kind of mentoring and coaching and helping people realize their potential, right? And I think what I've found is that, I used to think that, I wanted to be the guy with the cup, winning the medals and winning the games and getting the glory and all of that kind of stuff. And I look back now thinking, at the time, maybe that was right. But now with mature reflection, I get a whole lot more enjoyment out of being able to see other people succeed and to be able to, help them on their journey. And I think one of the things we try and do is, in helping people, it's often inside people. Success is within the person. It's just, how do you help that person release it? And I think that's what we do. So in Broadlake, we work with 7 businesses. We work with great leaders. We work with great leadership teams who employ about 3,500 people. And those 7 businesses range across different sectors. So they give lovely diversity and variety in opportunities and challenges and people. But where we put our emphasis is the one common denominator is they're great people. They're great people that are ambitious people, and that we try and support them on their journey individually in terms of getting the best out of them, in terms of, our purpose in Broadlake is realizing potential. And people would think, oh, that's realizing potential of business. Well, it's actually starting with the people. So if you realize the potential of individuals, each individual, then collectively they will realize their potential and do it in a way that that they're happy and content. And so it's very much people centered. Very much starts with people. But yeah, so that's what I do, and kind of, I guess, why I do it, but I'm lucky to do it.
Yeah, fantastic. And I've been very lucky to be around you and your team over the last couple of years. But one of the things that has always struck me about you in particular, but Broadlake as a business, you seem to thrive on exactly that, helping people realize their potential. But you seem to love the cut and thrust of business and building businesses and helping people to do that. Am I on the right track there, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think deep down we're kind of, there's explorers in us, right? So there's kind of entrepreneurial blood, and there's a desire to explore and to look at doing things differently, and to being brave, and to going after things and not being afraid. And when people say you can't, then we automatically think we can, right? And it's not that we go blindly after kind of growth and expansion and development. We do it in a very kind of sensible and planned way, but we we like to think of ourselves, we're based in Ireland. Our businesses are all Irish based, headquartered, but our ambition is international and global, right? And that's, so we like to try and have a mindset that is an international and global mindset, but that we're bringing to the businesses. And one of the things that's really, really important for us is that we enjoy what we're doing, right? So if we don't have a buzz, if we're not energized, if we're not playing to our strengths, then, why are we kind of doing it? And that's, when you have that from the top, because it's it's a business that, we're not at the behest of external investors. So it's our own money, it's our own businesses partnered with other people who have founded these businesses. So we're fairly tight. We can decide in our own destiny, and that gives us wonderful freedom. It gives us wonderful freedom to make long-term decisions, to take risks when we need to take risks, to not force things when they shouldn't be forced. And yeah, and the environment, we put a huge emphasis on having the right environment. We want places where people want to come and collaborate and work and have fun and be challenged and be supported. So yeah, the buzz that you see around the place it's very important for us to maintain it. And anytime it gets a bit challenged, we ask ourselves, right, what's happening to that kind of buzz? Do we need to change stuff or tweak stuff or evolve? And it's something we're not afraid of doing, is if something's not working, we just evolve it. And that's growth and evolution and development. We never overthink it. We just say, right, for the next stage of growth, what do we need to change? What do we need to evolve? And we just evolve and change, and we don't have the burden of maybe thinking, should we have evolved it quicker or changed it quicker? We just get on and change it and have the freedom to do that. So it's wonderful. Yeah, but there's a good buzz, and the good buzz comes from great people, and that's the magic.
You talk about in Broadlake about it being a family, and I get that, and I feel that, and I sense that when when I've been around you guys. But it's also something about the principles that you hold very dear within Broadlake and the various businesses. And I've always been struck by the one about when on top of your game, change your game. Relating back to what you said there, I'm just wondering, how does that find expression in your work within the various teams and the businesses that you're working with?
Yeah, so I think the principles is kind of form the foundation of a kind of a common language and a common culture between us and the businesses, right? And just to give a little bit of context to the listeners on these, I came up with this idea on the back of reading a book by James Kerr called Legacy, which talked about the principles that the All Blacks had developed, and they had developed them as a group, and they had talked about all of the things they wanted to hold each other, they wanted to live by and hold each other accountable to, and operate to. So it kind of became a common kind of language. So about 4 or 5 years ago now, I said, these are great. I said, I'm going to develop these. So I sat in my office and I developed these wonderful principles. And then it took me about a day or day and a half. And then it dawned on me, oh, Pete, the problem with these is, Pete, these are your principles. These are not the team's principles. So then I said, right, that was the wrong thing to do. Don't get bothered about that, but let's get the top 30 people across all of those businesses in a room for a day so we could talk to how do we want to operate? How do we want to? And most people look at the differences. See, if you look at the difference of our portfolio, we have businesses that are roasting coffee to providing nursing services to making Invertex to making conveyor systems or soap. So they're total diversity. And people go, what's in common? And it's people. We're all human, right? And that's what we have in common. So we got the people together and we came up with this list that we threw on a wall, big wall, and we had about 70 or 80 different things that we narrowed down into 15 things. And they have become our principles that we have lived to. And one of them, as you say, is when on top of your game, change your game. And there's lots of things that go behind that. But I would say probably the biggest thing, the biggest fueler to that particular principle and to many of our principles is confidence. So what prohibits people from often evolving and changing is confidence. Is the confidence to go at something differently, to do something, to risk making a mistake, to risk changing something that's worked for some time, to change it with something that is better fit for the next stage of development. And I'd often say to people, I look at things as opportunities and not problems. So if things have to change, I say, listen, there's an opportunity for us to evolve this. It's really exciting to bring us to the next level, right? As opposed to, we have a problem here now. For the next level, that's not going to be good enough. So the person is feeling it totally different in terms of, is it an opportunity here, which I get excited about, or is it a problem, which I worry about? Well, have I been the creator of that problem? Should I have changed the problem? Is it my problem? Etc., etc. So it's to build the confidence in people to actually be willing to explore doing things differently and be willing to have a safe space to make mistakes. And that's really important, as they say, the person who doesn't make mistakes doesn't make anything, right? And you need to try new things. You need to be willing to make mistakes. And if they don't work, we just leave them and say, that didn't work. Let's try something different. Whereas some people get taken very personally when things don't work. And that just then limits their ability and their freedom to actually explore change and evolution. Because, I'm always evolving as an individual, and corporately as organization, we're all evolving. And that's the exciting bit. It's kind of growing and developing. And as I say to people, at the tender age of 47, I don't know what I'll be when I grow up, right? But I know I have the freedom to continue to evolve, continue to explore, and so it's confidence to give people to look at doing things differently.
Yeah. And again, as I listen to you, I'm reflecting on the fact that you have often referred to a Broadlake 2.0 or whatever 3.0, and so there's you're putting a language around that and showing people, hey, this will change and we will change. And I think that's really powerful and important,
Yeah.
that Broadlake as the organization says, yeah, we will evolve, and we'll be a different version in a couple of years' time, because that's just that's the way we approach our business. That's the way we approach life almost. And that's what we want for our people and our businesses.
Yeah, and that, as you drive into Broadlake, you will see that, right? There's a three on the wall that you will see in terms of, and that's to remind people that now we're kind of on version 3. And even that, since that went on the wall a couple of years ago, we've scrapped that. So that worked for a period of time. Those versions worked for a period of time. And what I was trying to do with those versions was to get people aligned on the movement. So you move from version 1 to version 2, and in version 2 it's different to version 1, and in version 3 it's different to version 2. And they were when we had kind of, I guess, definitive turns in the road that represented a change. Now we've pulled totally back from that, right? And what we've said is, actually, now we're just constantly evolving. So it's not like you wait, like Microsoft, you wait 2 years for your next upgrade and everything changes in the upgrade, and then nothing changes for 2 years. You say, no, we're always evolving. And let's be free. And if people see a better way of doing things, let's empower people to not just think about better ways, but to actually go and implement better ways. So it's kind of a very kind of a free evolution, but having the goals of what we're trying to achieve clear, and having a lot of the how we achieve that around principles and the tools we use clear. So it gives people the freedom to actually constantly evolve. Because if you think of us personally, we don't decide that, listen, at the end of December 2022, a new version of Dave is going to be released. Yeah. Right? And everybody will see that on the 1st of January.
Yeah.
No, that's not the way it works. But like that worked for a while for us to get people aligned, but doesn't work anymore.
As you know, the below the line strapline is live well, perform better. So I'd love to know, Pete, what does that mean to you, or what's your interpretation of that little idea?
Yeah, I think for me, what comes up when you say that, right, is that it starts with the person, right? And for me, I didn't fully appreciate this earlier in my career, but I do fully appreciate it now. And it's something that I very much lead by example, and I think that is the key to leadership. We can tell people what we think, or this, that, and the other, but we're far better to show them. And you learn that at home, and you learn that in business. We have 4 young boys, and you just know that setting the example, even by example, makes a far greater impact than actually trying to tell people and maybe acting in a way that's contrary to what you're telling them, right? So what it means for me is little things like, you got to put yourself first, right? So it's like on the airplane where they say, if there's a problem and the gas masks pop down, you got to put on your own gas mask first. Because if you don't put on your own first, you can't help the people to the left and to the right of you, et cetera, et cetera. And life is a little bit like that. And very often for people who are very committed, and it's a wonderful trait, to helping others and to doing others, sometimes they do that very much at the expense of themselves. And ultimately what happens is that is not sustainable, right? That ends up people having health issues, or stressed, or not getting the best out of themselves because they're giving it to everybody else. And you do got to put yourself first. So what does that mean for us? I'll give an example. The best example in Broadlake is we have a tool called the Realizer, right? And that's a tool that I use from the coaching side of things with our the people I coach, to help them realize their potential, right? So if realizing potential is our goal, this tool is called the Realizer. And there's 3 elements to this, right? There is the first element is, and it's deliberately in this triangle. The first element is a section called My Now, and the MY stands for Mind Yourself Now, right? And that covers the spokes of a wellness wheel. It's physical, mental, emotional, and social, work balance, financial, and peace of mind. The second section is their development, what they're learning, and how they're putting those learnings into practice. And the third element is their high 5. That's what's their job spec. But most people in their job spec, it's too complicated. It's like there's so many things. So I'm like, how can you simplify it? As I say to people, if you can't tell me on one hand what you kind of do, if you're going to the second hand, or certainly if you're going to use your toes to count, you're trying to do too much, right? But the order, if you think of traditional management and leadership, what people do is they focus a lot on that what. What are you doing? So when I do sessions with leaders, we start with my now. How are you doing? Right? So how are you doing as an individual? And I can tell you that by the time you get through that and talk through all of these things, you know exactly how those 5 areas of their job are going. But you're not coming at it the indirect way. You're coming at it direct, because you're focusing on the individual. You're focusing on how are you doing. And if you have the skill and the will and the ambition, Dave, to do the job, right, that you're in, then, and we've established all of that, then the key thing for us is to making sure that we're supporting you and you're in a good place to be able to perform. So it leads to wonderful conversations. We have another principle that is know yourself to know each other. And what it does is these conversations get people to really know each other, what's going on in their world, and that builds connection, and that builds, an environment of care where we care for our people, right? So that doesn't just say to someone, put yourself first, Dave. It says, put yourself first, and we're going to have a conversation with you to try and help you do that. And that's where a lot of it breaks down. As people say, Dave, now put yourself first. Now let's get on to what you're doing now, Dave. And, people say, the start of a meeting, so how are you doing? And Dave says, yeah, no, I'm doing grand. And Dave says, Pete, how are you doing? I'm doing grand. And when I dig below grand, or when I dig below good, or when I dig below great, there's all sorts of different things that go on in everybody's world. My world, your world, and it changes month to month. And it's beneficial when your leader and your manager knows a little bit about what's going on in your world, because the world isn't perfect and utopian. And that's what you're bringing. And that's what we love, is people are bringing their individuals and themselves to work. So unless we actually understand that, we won't be able to help them get the best out of themselves. And so for me, that strap line, live well, perform better, is it resonates for us a lot. It's the don't just ask people to put themselves first. Help people to put themselves first. Because very often, if we know what's going on in people's worlds, we can know when things come out of sync. And then by them knowing, then they don't have the guilt of knowing that, listen, somebody's sick in their family, they have to spend a bit of time at this, or they've been struggling to get time to go to the gym because they've been busy on those projects. And there's been times where we'll say to people, listen, no, stop. Listen, schedule that. And that becomes your most important hour of the week, or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever your sessions in terms of gym or exercise or whatever. And it has to happen. And that's what I do. I'm very disciplined around certain habits, and they help me. But if I didn't put myself, anytime I come away from putting myself first, I suffer. And in the past, I put myself last. So I'm a kind of a reformed, but I did put myself last, and it had its toll on health and stress and all of those kind of things. So I think it's something that people themselves need to get comfortable with, but to help people, really organizationals need to get comfortable with it. So unless your leaders and your manager and your culture supports that, it's very, very difficult. And there's the wonderful opportunity. Is that a problem? No. Is it an opportunity? Absolutely. But it's an opportunity for leaders and organizations to think a little harder on how much time and effort and support they actually truly put into this.
Yeah. And it's listening to you talk there, if I link it back to what you were saying about realizing potential, you're not just talking about it from a business point. I know that's important, obviously, to you and all the business that you're involved with, but you are trying to say to people, we're all not winning here unless you're realizing more of your own potential. And that does involve putting yourself first and putting that bit of work, time, effort into that, because the knock-on impact is obviously going to be improved business performance, better outcomes, etc., etc.
Yeah, like listen, we're very focused on growth and realizing potential, right? And we've got big ambitions, right? but we're also very focused on the legacy we're building and we want to kind of leave behind, right? And our growth is only, and you can say this when it's your own business, it's impactful growth. So we will only work with businesses that, one, in terms of what we think they're doing, has a positive impact, but also, more importantly, the how we're doing it, that it's positively impactful. And you might say, well, Pete, what does positive impact mean? There's a lot of people talking about this. And for us, it centers around, the need that we want to have positive impact. And that's a capital HAVE. And that stands for happiness, accessibility, and inclusion. We want to be a valued member of the community. It's really important to us, right? And we want to promote the right environmental choices, right? So talk about happiness. There's no point in us saying we have businesses that are going to make the world better and reduce its carbon footprint and make everybody live longer and your work life is misery. I'm thinking, why would we do that? So it all starts with happiness. If we can't, and happiness is not a utopian, we're always happy, but we want to create environments that and we want to have a culture of one that really, really puts that at the top of the list. We want to have happy people at work. And if happiness is changing, then we need to change the way we're doing things, right? So that's what, I'm just off 2 coaching sessions this morning and I'm buzzing because I can see the development in these people. And I play a little part in that. And there's lots of people in the organization in Broadlake and within the businesses that play parts in that. And below the line in terms of from its coaching support. And it's just wonderful. That gives me a kick. I don't get that same kick when I look at an Excel spreadsheet at the end of the month that tells me, something's up 5%, 10%. That's not. So we kind of focus on, like, Excel is outputs. We get all our pleasure and desire and likes from seeing inputs. So we know with the growth and development of these people, they're going to be able to achieve wonderful things, and they're going to be happy with their growth and development. So yeah, it's very much input focused in terms of what we do.
You mentioned earlier you're reformed in the sense of putting your own mask on first. I'd love to know, and you've touched on some of this already, but just the practices, the habits, the behaviors, the stuff that you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that just help you to show up and do what you do.
Yeah. So I use the Realizer product that we've developed on myself, and all that is, it's just a simple way of checking in to make sure that I'm kind of, and it's like we describe the spokes of the My Now wheel as being like spokes of a bicycle, right? So if a spoke comes a little bit out of kilter, you can maybe still cycle, but it's not as comfortable, but you need to get the spoke fixed. If 2 or 3 spokes come out at once, the wheel might start to struggle to turn, right? So it's not about them all being perfect all of the time. But I kind of use them as a way of just staying kind of in sync, right? And what do you talk about? Habits and the likes, and sometimes habits can be things that people can perceive as negative things. So I'm kicking a bad habit. So is it a habit or is it a ritual, right? And a ritual can sometimes be considered a kind of almost a sacred, great thing to be doing, right? So but what if you were to call them rituals or routines, what would they be, right? And I would say that there's certain things I have grown to accept who I am, and I have grown to accept that I have some great strengths and I have some great weaknesses, and I've grown to accept that I enjoy putting my time and effort and energy into my strengths and trying to get other people to cover me in my weaknesses. So if I was in a sports team, I would be in a position that is clear, but it's not trying to cover all positions, right? And that took a huge, even that getting to there took a huge amount of, because very often in the past I was trying to work on my weaknesses all the time to get them good, and kind of figured out, hang on a second, if I get them good, then I won't be getting my strengths to where I could be potentially world class, right? So there's one accepting that, and then it's a case of focusing on myself. So I focus on routines. These routines or rituals help me. So one of them is gym 4 times a week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I get up and go to the gym. 7:30 to 8:30, we have a gym in Broadlake. I go to the gym, right? And I don't think about going to the gym. I just go to the gym, right? And I don't have to wake up and go, oh, it was a bad night's sleep, or, or, oh, listen, will I go today? Or, do you know what? I might go at lunchtime, right? Somebody said to me in a coaching session earlier today, they said, I'll try and do this. I said, well, what does that mean? Like, the word try is, all it's doing is deferring the decision. So I said, I've made the decision, I'm doing that, and I do that. So that gets me up. It gets me to the gym. I try and be pretty good around what I eat, and I try and be good around what I drink, right? And I try and be good around keeping blocks of the week free. So I used to be a weekend worker. I'm no longer a weekend worker. I grew up, my dad had a shop and a coal business, and we were always working kids. And my dad worked every day of the year, right? He used to actually, it was funny, he used to always, on Christmas Day, the only day the shop was closed, he would always wake up on Christmas morning and say, I left something in the shop. I need to just go over. And he'd go over and he'd pull up the shutter and he'd go in. And I don't think he ever left anything at all. I think it was just that he was so used to every day of the year going to the shop that was just what he did, right? So, I learned a phenomenal amount. He passed away 6 years ago, but I learned a phenomenal amount from him in terms of just hard work and entrepreneur spirit and all that kind of stuff. But what it did was it created this kind of work ethic that kind of got me to a point, but I had to reframe it to get me to where I am today. So I had to be comfortable not working weekends. I had to be comfortable getting home, to see kids in the evening. I had to be comfortable taking time off in the week to coach kids in their sport. So now I've become far more focused on impact rather than time. I kind of said my dad made a lot of his, he worked hard. He used his hands. It was hard work to make his money. And he was very bright, but a lot of that was hard. And I said, listen, I'd love to be able to do that with my head over my hands, so it had less of an impact, because I saw the impact it had on him. And so now I try and do that, but I try and focus on quality over quantity. So I try and focus on the impact of my time over the quantity of my time. And that has just made me more impactful. It has made me more focused on where I am putting my time and where I'm not putting my time. And it's an ability to never be afraid to change. So I'm always saying, like, if I used my time last year, I allocated it into these areas, I'd always question myself and say, now, is that still having the impact? Or do I need to be doing that? Or should somebody else be doing that? And to move out of things. And I think that has led me to create more space as we grow and develop, because other people can step into space, so it's constantly looking at impact, constantly looking at, people in our world look at return on investment, ROI. We look at ROT, return on time, because that's our scarcest resource. And now more recently, I've started looking at ROS, return on stress. So because as you're looking to do all these things, there's levels of stress you want, and pushing yourself outside the comfort zone always creates discomfort. But the question is, where's the best impact of that? So it's they're a couple of the areas that kind of keep me on the straight and narrow, and make sure I continue to enjoy it, because for me, that's sustainability. If I don't enjoy this, I'll just, I just won't want to do it, or it certainly won't get the best out of me.
What do you see as some of being the key performance or business challenges that you think people are facing right now? And maybe to expand that out, as as I'm talking to you, we're still in the summer months and we're entering into the winter, and there's all sorts of talk about recessions and rising costs and all that type of stuff. But what's your take on that, and where's your mindset at when it comes to stuff like that?
Yeah, at a high level, there's there's things that are here in the moment, and you gotta ask yourself the question around responding to things that are here in the moment. And then it's about, what are the things that are here in the moment telling us about the longer term changes, right? And I think as I look at the world today, there's lots of challenges out there that face us, right? But when we put them in the context of generations that have gone before us, and where we are located and where we are living in this, that, and the other, there are challenges that we need to keep in mind the context of those relative to maybe what's going on in the Ukraine at the minute, or what's gone on, what goes on in Africa, and what's gone on around the world. So I think with that in mind, I think what's really, really important, and none of this will be hugely unique to the listeners, right? But some of the things that I have found is some of the most important things that have dawned on me have not been when they've dawned on me for the first time, but maybe when I've heard them 3 or 4 times, and then they've actually registered with me, right? So I think when you look at people, and you look at, people are talking about the challenges of blended working and working from home and hybrid, and all the challenges and tight labor markets, yet despite the fact that, there's a recession pending, and there's war and inflation and supply chain issues and all of these fairly dark clouds, how I look at them is to say, listen, anytime there's change, there's opportunity if one responds and evolves. So at a high level, how would I read it? I would think that now individuals want to work to feel like they have an individual purpose, right? And that's hard to do if you're not in a team that has a purpose. And if that team is not in an organization that has a purpose. So I think purpose is really, really important. It doesn't have to be something that you bring in McKinsey to find out this world breaking purpose, or, it can be anything, it could be the coffee shop on the corner going, we are going to be the friendliest coffee shop in South Dublin because our customers have been through a lot over the last 2 years, and we value friendship, and we value, so when we're all about friendly, right? And their coffee might be as good as one down the road, but they're friendlier, right? So whatever their purpose is, because that'll have they want to make people happy or whatever. So organizational purpose and individual purpose within the context of that, and making sure that people are getting to express themselves in that way, is really, really important. So that I just think that is going to be so important. And I think if we look to recent years, I think what COVID has taught us, and what the challenges have taught us of the last few years, is that companies are now, they've been found out a little, right, in terms of, and I'm not blaming companies, because it's that maybe there hasn't been the right forces forcing people to change, right? But I think now people need to be look at what they're doing for their people, as opposed to what they're giving to their people, right? And the distinction I would give there is that, in the past, we're given free this, and we're given that, and we're given that, and we have all this, and we have all that, and you get this, and you get that, and that's fine, right? But now people are thinking about, right, do they care about us? Like, do they fundamentally care about us? But you're giving us all this stuff. Yeah, but that's just because maybe we're adding to the bottom line, and if they want more of us, they'll recruit more of us, and if they want less of us, they'll fire us. But do they actually put us individuals and our purpose and their purpose, and do they actually put the level of importance on us? And I think when all of this, because people have had to, have a little recheck on things with COVID, it's made people reflect on what they're doing, what they're not doing, what they want to be doing, how they want to be living. And I still think we haven't fallen into the right equilibrium yet, right? And I have no doubt it will be better than where we entered COVID coming out, right? But I don't think it's yet established. But I think it'll be where, you have this purpose, and you have this level of care that people have about their people. That's on another level. And we start, we love our people. And people say, Jesus, right, that word now, you don't use that word in work. We love our people. And they are the things, like, as I say, I'm coming off these 2 coaching sessions, I have a couple of coaching sessions after this, but I love them because you're working with them and you're helping them and you can see the impact. So, but it starts with the person. We're trying to help the person get the best out of them, so I think it's gonna be the future is going to be where you can make it very much employee centered, right? And I think that will enable us, because control the controllables, right? And that will enable us to put people in a position that they can deal with the challenges that are thrown, right? One of the things that popped up, the other day for me was, is this serenity prayer, right? And again, I would describe myself as, listen, I have strong faith. I'm not going to mass too much, but I have strong faith, and I do pray and this, that, and the other. But like the simplicity, whether you're religious or non-religious, just the concept. So it's, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom, most importantly, to know the difference, right? And stuff like that. That is going to be so key, because if you're supporting people and you're helping them, then you will help them deal with what's around the corner. Is that could that be another COVID? Could it be another war? Could it be another whatever? And if people are in organizations that really care for them, they're they gotta be, and organizations that have purpose and organizations that have impact. Surely that's where the world is going to want to be. And I think every organization out there today can be these organizations, and that's what we're trying to be. We're trying hard. Is there lots of opportunity to be better? Absolutely. Are we running hard and trying to be better? Absolutely. When the opportunity disappears is when I get worried. So if I can't see opportunity, that's when I actually get worried. But I think that's the key. So making sure people are cared for, and people feel like they've got a kind of a sense of purpose and a sense of value. I think that's just so important.
Fantastic. I've 2 more quick questions for you, and I might combine them in one. So, what's the first part? What's the one piece of advice you would give to anyone looking to live well and perform better? And secondly, who are the people that you look to for inspiration in that space as well?
Okay, so the first part of that, I would say there's we to become aware of what that means to you individually. So that live well person requires a level of self reflection, right? I find that's easier to do with somebody, right? So I would say, if you can get a coach or get coaches. So I have coaches. I'm blessed that there's a number of people that I kind of draw on, and they don't have to necessarily be, depending on your circumstances. These could be, they could be a friend, they could be somebody you respect, they could be somebody who you look up to, they could be anybody, right? But it's to try and help you to say, listen, this is what I kind of want to do. Any ideas, right? So I would certainly, and coaches don't have to be for life. Like, you don't have to have one of them, and they can help you on different stages and different bits and pieces. But it's to start to have somebody that helps you explore what that means for you and what you need to change. But it's also to have somebody that in your corner that cares about you, that might hold you accountable, and that every so often might give you a little nudge, because all of us need a little nudge every now and then to stay. Because it's one thing being aware, but it's another thing being conscious, and then getting that conscious to subconscious. So I have no awareness around the gym. I just subconsciously do that. I get up, the alarm clock goes, and I get up and I put on my runners and I go to the gym. I don't think about anything. I just do that. So I would say that's important. I would say then, to the second part of your question, who are the people? So because I like to learn, right? I tend to read a lot and I tend to listen a lot. right? Now I'm actually a really slow reader, right? So that kind of frustrates me. So when Audible came out, it was like a dream to me. So I could actually listen to books, right? And so what I tend to do is I tend to listen to books. I tend to listen to some podcasts, explore, figure out what I like, and the nature of what I look at, listen to, and read kind of can vary over time. But the great thing about things like whether it be podcasts or whether it even be Blinkist. So Blinkist is the subscription that summarizes books into 15 or 20 minutes. So if you don't feel like you have time for full books and da da da, so I would just be it's more who I would just be open to try in different forms. There's so much at our disposal now, and sometimes the insights that I get and the knowledge that leads to a little bit of wisdom comes from joining up different dots. So it might be something, Dave, you said today, with something that I heard in a podcast tomorrow, and then I read a piece, something in the paper the next day, and I might join those dots up and say, Jesus, for me that means X. But I think it's the openness, and it's just the, start exploring and don't be afraid of it, but do it in a way that, like, you can dream big, like you can be whatever you want to be. And I'm a big believer in that. And that's something I would promote with the kids. Do not let anyone stand in the way of your dreams, right? And if you want to achieve anything, you can. And then just go with it and start exploring, so there's lots of people's fingertips. You don't have to say, oh, I didn't have time to get the coach. No, get a podcast, figure out what you want to, and just go online and figure out a podcast that's talking about this stuff. And then one podcast will lead you to another podcast, and da da da. And that was why, to be honest, I set up, and podcasts are great. And I have a podcast, Potential Squared, and I set that up to try and share insights from high performing people, Irish people at home and abroad. And I love it when you go and you do this with people and you have chats and you explore what they're thinking. You go, oh, that was a great idea. I might try that. Or, oh, he said that and they're doing that and we're doing that too. Okay, that builds my confidence. Somebody else is doing the same as I'm doing. And it's just never stop. It's like that little slogan underneath the North Face logo: never stop exploring. And it's to have the freedom to and the courage to kind of do that.
Brilliant. Well, that's a perfect place to end the conversation. So, Pete, thanks very, very much for giving me your time, and just being so informative and inspiring, and just full of wisdom. I think there's loads of this for anyone listening to this conversation. So, thanks very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Pleasure. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's conversation. We hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard and you want to stay in touch with us, then please head over to www.belowtheline.ie to subscribe to our mailing list and to explore our upcoming programs and events, including our Elemental Leadership Experience coming up on the 13th and 14th of October. Until then, take care and see you next time.